we want to talk about next, which is PASPA. You mentioned Churchill Downs and its revenue coming from casino. Um, I've worked with Churchill, sold businesses to them, and they're constantly looking for new revenue streams because of the Kentucky Derby can only sustain you for so long. Yesterday, Churchill Downs announced a partnership with SB Tech, if I'm not mistaken, clearly in response to the Supreme Court's decision on PASPA, and are now looking to get, obviously, into the sports betting business. My understanding is there's something like 5 or 6 states that have legislation written and ready for this decision. New Jersey, of course, is going to be one of the first to adopt. Pennsylvania, I think West Virginia, and a couple others. Tell me what you think, Rob, is going to happen in the U.S. Are we going to see pretty much every betting company trying to do a deal right now? And at what point will we realize, or will it become known as to what entities are going to get a license for sports betting? And if those entities are only going to get a license on premise, or if it's going to also extend to internet sports betting?
Yes,
there's a lot of questions.
It's a lot of questions there, and there's an awful lot of attention being paid to sports betting and the opportunity in the U.S. because illegal gambling is about estimated by the American Gaming Association at 150 billion, and most people that I speak to who have their own estimates think that that's low. That's 200 billion, 250 billion. The economics of sports betting in the United States, where it really just exists in Nevada, although there's 4 states that allow it, that were excluded from PASPA, only one state actually has sports betting, and that is the state of Nevada. And there the metrics are that about 5% of sports betting turns into gaming revenues, right? And then the margin on that business is about 30 or 40% with a 10% tax rate, and with no fee to the leagues. So there's multiple things going on. Number one, which states are really going to do this? As you mentioned, 4 states have already passed legislation that immediately goes into effect once PASPA has been repealed. However, the details of that legislation have not been ferreted out that much. New Jersey will working quickly, but one of those states, they haven't even passed the tax rate. Mm-hmm. So so that's number one. Number two is it going to be just in the casino, or is it going to include remote betting? Now, if you recall, there was a lot of attention about iGaming coming to America. I guess it started maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when it was. Excuse me, I take that back. It started about 4 years ago, when New Jersey decided to permit it, and the expectations were huge, and that it was going to be in every state. And here we are now, 4 years later or 3 years later, and New Jersey is the only place that really has iGaming. Because in Nevada, where it's been legalized, it's only for poker, and the other state is Delaware, and there's a high tax rate. It's run by the government. There's no people there because you can't pass state to state, so it's meaningless. So here we are 4 years later, a massive investment in getting ready for it, and it doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist? Because state legislatures, it's a conservative country in many ways, a religious country in many ways, and a lot of state legislatures don't want gambling in people's homes. So now we move it forward to sports betting. Sports betting is more commonly appreciated by the populace. Society has moved forward in terms of allowing this as a good activity, and several states, 4 states, as we said, have passed laws just based on PASPA, and there's 7 states that have proposed legislation. Many of them, but we don't know if it's going to be at the casinos and at the tracks, or just casinos and not the tracks. So the racing business, again, is very eager to get involved. But most importantly is, will it be digital? Because if I'm not mistaken, in the UK, once they had digital sports betting, the revenues doubled. And I know in Nevada, once they put in digital, even though it's not as good as it is here, because you still have to go to a casino to set up an account, the revenue's doubled. But if you think about iGaming, and New Jersey's going to have digital, but New Jersey, remember, is the only state that already has iGaming. So if you think about the reaction towards having gaming in the house, and you can imagine that a state says, okay, we're going to allow digital sports betting, and now a photographer goes into somebody's house, in New Jersey, for example, where they'll do it, and they'll take a picture of mom and dad and the kids watching the Sunday football game, and everyone's gambling, including the kids. So the next state that looks at passing this is going to get that picture or the video maybe of it, and the Bible belting, the Bible thumping people, the anti-gamers, will say, no way, look what we want our children betting on sports. And I think, and I have.
You think they'd rather have them bet with the mafia as they do now?
Well, here's the interesting thing. It's not that many people who are betting with the mafia. I mean, it's 150 billion. Can you imagine how big it would be if you were betting legally?
Everyone's betting with the mafia in the U.S. I mean, it's not necessarily organized crime as it used to be, but I mean, there is a bookmaker on every corner in the U.S.
I think that it is very common. I don't think it's as prevalent as you. You're an American. You sound like an American. I've been in the gaming business for 35 years. I don't think it's that prevalent in terms of people betting illegally. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's because I don't bet on sports. But
it's definitely because you don't bet on sports.
Okay.
Every barman in America will tell you which guy at the bar is going to take a bet. Usually, it's the barman.
So, but I think that's still the case. I mean, we don't let children in the United States at the drinking age is 21, it's a conservative country. So I think you are going to see some backlash. My point of view.
Do you think that the lotteries will want to get involved with sports betting?
Absolutely. So you
will
already
that turn
have
every 7-Eleven into a sports betting outlet?
You already have, and I think that's a bigger and less discussed opportunity. Is the lottery opportunity, and I've been talking to some of the lottery companies who want to come there and want our help trying to figure that out and where is the best opportunity. There's, as you get convergence in gaming between online casinos, horse racing, simulcasting, lotteries, it's gonna be a regulatory battle. Who gets it? Which government agency? Is it going to be the casino regulators that are going to get it for the casinos, or is it going to be the lottery regulators? So I think that is a big opportunity for the lotteries in certain places where the lotteries
or a new regulator possibly. I mean, in some countries they have a separate entity. Cyprus, for example, they have a national betting authority, special that's different from the casino authority. So it could be another regulatory agency.
Well, look, the trend generally is in business is towards consolidation to gain efficiencies. The trend in government theoretically should be the same, which is to consolidate it over time. So I think longer term, you'll see fewer regulatory bodies, within each state. But you can't stop the idea that people want power and control and control over jobs, and therefore you may see a third body. But I'm more likely to think it's going to be one or the other.
But unlikely to be a federally regulated area, and that's one of the big problems with the rollout is that it's going to be state by state. You aren't going to be able to cross borders because of the Wire Act still, and it's going to be the kind of critical mass is not going to be as big as it would be if there was a way to do it nationally. So,
do you think that smaller population states are going to struggle to
make a go of it? Well, you can see with Nevada, they certainly haven't set the world on fire with their poker business, have they? So.
Well, poker requires pooling, right? To make it interesting. Without the liquidity of that, you don't have much of a game, and the casinos there are the main driver for that state. They have a massive influence over what happens in that state, more so than any place else in the country. And they haven't wanted it really in the homes. They want people to come to their properties and play and stay and eat and go to the shows, whatever it is else you do there, shop. So I don't know if Nevada is the best example of that. I don't know if sports betting requires really as much pooling
It
as poker,
depends.
right?
I mean, it depends, right?
If we're in a
And,
betting exchange, obviously,
Yeah.
it'd be much better to have
in exchange for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But even odds disparities are going to be a problem. So if I'm in Delaware and I have a small state, and the Eagles are playing, but maybe at home, all of a sudden I've got an issue where my population is going to bet heavy on the Eagles. Now, if I'm a multi-state operator, I could absorb that because maybe they're playing Dallas and I've got operations in Texas and I can balance my sports book
Yep.
through that. If not, then I'm going to need to alter my odds to get more people to bet Dallas and Delaware if I'm only stuck within my state. Unless, of course, I could maybe lay off with other bookmakers. But I'm not sure in a world where the Wire Act exists that that's going to be a possibility. So can I call a bookmaker in Texas and say, you're heavy on Dallas right now, I'm heavy on the Eagles right now, can we lay off with each other? I don't know that that's going to, if that's going to be able to exist or not. Does anyone have an opinion on that?
But isn't that why Betfair are in a great position here? So I noticed that they're talking about buying FanDuel or investing in FanDuel.
Right.
But in addition, they've got an exchange-based product, which they don't care. They're just going to take money based on the exchange. They can go state by state, they can go
But
city
can you
by
pull
city.
the exchange? That's the next question.
But for them, it kind of doesn't matter because as long as you're running it in a, whatever the regulatory situation is, I think they're going to be in a very strong position for the U.S. market. They've already got TVG, the advanced wagering stuff on the horse racing. So bring the exchange into that marketplace, and you don't need to call the guy in.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then again, the odds disparity will then promote illegal betting because if you're in Delaware and I want to bet the Eagles and I can get a much better price with somebody in Texas, then I've got to go to it's going to be hard to find them if I live in your neighborhood, but anywhere else. I have to go to my local guy or maybe go
There's a
offshore.
good chance those guys will be straightening out the exchange as well, right? So they'll be in that exchange and part of the liquidity of that experience. And I'm sure the legal guys are looking forward to having legal options available to them.
I think actually you're touching on an interesting point, which I think is understated as people have looked at the potential for sports betting, and that is that it's a risk business.
Right.
You can lose, the companies are all looking at it and thinking of it in the terms of just another gaming business where they're locked in to win, but there's real risk in this business, and that's going to create a friction cost.
I guess unless there's liquidity, though. If there's enough people betting and you could balance both sides of your bet, you've always got your 5% margin.
I think that if you look at the more mature digital sports betting businesses, actually there's been a very, very dramatic drift away from ante-post, pre-event betting where you have this arbitrage problem, state to state, or the vast majority of the revenue and the margin is now made on in-play, entertainment-based, recreational betting product. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I think the digital argument is more difficult than the kind of the straightforward view of do you want it in the home, because you can't have in-play betting with the same type of engagement unless you can do it at an event you're watching or in front of a TV when you're watching it. So the second screen is an important element for enabling that. Then you have a higher margin, you have less exposure to volatility, you have less challenge with regards to arbitration between different markets, and a less compelling product for an exchange in a way. And so one of the challenges that exchanges have had in getting past their kind of niche status in terms of the market into that much larger market is driven by that, the demand of that in-play, more entertainment-focused product. So I think, the sports betting margins in the US are ridiculously high at the moment. They'll come down, we'll get more in-play product. It will take longer than anyone wants to believe today for this all to happen, because it will happen state by state, and the large players in the US, and add some media companies to that, will have a dominant position, maybe with participation, but not control, in my view, from some of the European players. But we'll that's a story that will map out over the next 4 years, not over the next 4 months, in my mind.